It's Lil Baby.
Welcome to episode 27 of Conversations with Chai. I'm your host, Ihram Chowdhury, aka Lil Baby Ram Ram. Today I have with me such a wide range of the dance community here, and I love that. I have with me Rohit, Tushita, and Ansh. Hey guys.
Hello.
How's everyone doing?
Good.
Great.
Good to be here.
Yeah. But realistically, it's like such a wide range, which is why I was glad that this kind of worked out the way that I kind of wanted it to work out. Three people who are obviously have been doing this, right, in very different capacities and have been doing it for varying lengths of time, right? Rohit's been doing this for a very, very long time. But you guys have also been operating it. But I really admire the dance creator scene, because I think y'all have done something that a lot of the other creator industries probably haven't done as well. Somehow there's so many dancers that are efficiently conducting business within this community. For some reason, I don't know. Y'all tell me the reason, right? Because I don't really understand it either. Like, what do y'all think that is, right? Because every single week I see Tushita, somebody have a class, somebody have a session that looks sold out.
Yeah.
I know y'all be charging for it, right? I know the numbers behind it, and I'm all like, how is this but it's every week, right? And so, there's so many of y'all that are able to do this. What kind of makes that even possible? Because I feel like the rest of the creator industries haven't really figured out that part, right? Like, how do multiple ones of us exist?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Anyway, no. I don't know. I think maybe just because dance is such a community thing in itself, right? Like, if there's a class, you bring your friends with you, right? Like, you want to try something out. If there's a dance class and there's 3 people who are dancers and 2 aren't, they're like, it's fine, just come. We'll take you with us. And then that just evolves into 5 more friends and 5 more friends, and other people tell other people, and it kind of just expands from there. And I think just maybe going back in time of all this, as you said, I've been doing it a very long time. I've lost track of how long.
How long has it been, honestly?
A very long time, at least 10 to 12 years in terms of full-time professional, right? That's all I've done. Which
is so crazy, because I think that's why I was super excited, obviously, to get you on, right? Because you've been doing this for such a long time, and you've built an entire career, right? Because I hope for y'all also have the interest of making this sustainable for a long amount of time, right? Because it's cool that people can do this for 1 or 2 years, right? But it's sad that they have to retire it because of the life realities, right? Mm-hmm. So it's cool that you're recently a dad, right? That you're able to still operate, congrats, right? Operate in the space that you've created for yourself and built out that career, right? But
yeah. I mean, I think it goes both ways, right? There's one, just being Desi South Asian, there's already just a handful of people that are able to get that opportunity to do it at a younger age, and just having parents that are cool, do it. Yeah. And then because I had that, I didn't have to fight that battle to begin with. I could just literally focus on just that. College was a formality.
Mm-hmm.
An Indian person gets to say that often, at least back in 10, 15 years ago,
Yeah.
Where Instagram Reels and YouTube was not that you couldn't grow up and be I want to be a content creator. I was dude, what? Crazy.
Yeah.
But I think just back to that point of I think several years back, even when I started teaching, there wasn't much of a dance scene, right? And I was oh, LA has a dance scene. New York doesn't have anything. And I was F it, we're going to do it. Let's just try. First couple of times, dude, it failed so badly. Failed miserably. Because there just wasn't a community, right? People didn't know about it. But then I think throughout the course of the years, I took some time off. I came back, and then Tushita started teaching as well. She used to take a lot of my classes as well. Mm-hmm. But then she also found her lane and her unique style. Then more other instructors started coming into New York in itself. And I think just post-COVID, we've seen an influx of so many people move to New York. And I kid you not, it is wild that people say I moved to New York for the dance classes. I'm dude, that's a lot of rent to pay just for dance classes. But I appreciate it, because people are moving from different cities, because now New York is a scene, which was 6-7 years ago. It was just bubbling with maybe 4 or 5 of us. And now every day there's 5-6 classes, and each of them have enough people, and that's a dream, right? That's how you grow the community. Right. That's what we want.
Exactly.
No, it's a full-on ecosystem. Talk about that, right? How is that a thing, right? Where y'all are able to all of y'all are able to coexist, right? Because back to everyone has a full class, right? What makes that even possible?
No, I think exactly what Rohit was saying too. All of us have honestly kind of found our own niches within the community. Obviously, my primary thing is Bhangra. Ansh does a lot of like Bolly jazz. Rohit does a lot of Bollywood and classical, semi-classical as well. So I think all of us have kind of figured out a way to also expand within our niche and just become experts at it. And I think that also kind of really helps to get that attraction, because people have so many different styles to learn, so many different like people to learn it from. So that's also just like a incredible thing that we've been able to kind of feed off of each other's energies and like learn from each other and keep that community going. Yeah.
I love that y'all like it really is a community in the sense that like all of y'all like know each other, right? And not
Yeah.
all of y'all know each other, but all of y'all kind of like support each other too, right? Which is something that I really think is like fire, right? And probably is one of the reasons the community is so successful, right? Is because there is a lot of like inter-community changes, right? Like who is that like a natural thing, right? Or like how is that like actually playing out within the community, right? Is it like y'all making a concerted effort, like yo, like let's shout out this person's class, like hey, let's all go to this class, like what kind of drives that piece of community?
For sure. Like I think at like every single one of our classes, we make a point to be like, all right, like yes, I teach, but also there are so many people who are teaching in the community. Like definitely check them out. Like there's so many times where at the end of class, someone will come up to me and be like, I'm looking for more dance classes. I just came across yours. Do you know anyone else who teaches? And I'll be like, shoot me a DM. Here are the profiles. Go check them out. So I think that in itself also just is a really good way to obviously like show support to each other. And like as Rohit was saying, like I used to go to every single one of Rohit's classes, like from 2018 to 2020 probably, and just like meeting people, building your own like kind of identity within the dance class space also helps a lot, I would say. Because you meet people, you make friends, and it kind of becomes like a more social thing as well. Like, what are you doing this week? Oh, I'm going to a dance class. Like, let's all go together. So it's become a very like natural part of our like weekly routine at this point, where it's honestly like a blessing that we can even get to do that. But yeah.
And I think even just like culturally, like for most of us, like dance was such an integral part of just like South Asian culture. Like we grew up like being forced to perform at like family friend functions, and many people were like trained in like classical dance, and then you go to college and then you join like a fusion team or a Bhangra team or whatever. And I think post COVID, like a switch kind of flipped in a lot of people, and they realized like I really want to just keep doing this. And there's so many South Asian people in New York, and so I think the demand is just there. Like people just love dancing, and they love just like adding it to their weekly schedule, as Tush said. So yeah, especially when there are so many niches, it's really awesome that there gets to be that large of a community.
No, for sure. And like what you're talking about, I think it's so cool that because then we get to see the modern iteration of something that is so integral to South Asian culture, right? Like what you're talking about is like, you know, things like that are so, like Bhangra, right? Like carpet, like things that are so embedded into the culture. But now we get, because of the current New York City dance community, right? Like we get to see what the modern version of that like looks like, right? It's like it doesn't just end with like, oh, you did Bharatanatyam for 16 years, right? And then you graduated and that's it, right? Because of something like this, like you're able to exist into your 20s, into your 30s, right? And then continue to do this. I think that's like cool, right? Because we talked about like you want to make it sustainable, right? You want there to be like a Rohit who's able to do this for 10, 15, 20 years, right? Because then it's like, okay, like we were able to actually fulfill like our like life's purpose almost, right? Because we didn't have to quit this because like, oh, I gotta go feed the family, right? Like you should be able to do both, right? You should want to do both, right? Because we sacrifice one for the other, right? And at that point, you're like compromising a part of you are, right? Like I'm sure you felt that too, right? Like I'm sure there was chances where it was like, you know what? I could stop doing this right now and probably make more money doing X, Y, and Z, right? But it's like, this is kind of what you're like wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because now I think about it every time. I'm like, yeah, I should maybe just do some kind of job on the side just to like feel a little bit more secure for myself. And I'm like, no, I can't do it. And like, who the hell's gonna even hire me? I have zero experience in the real life world. I'm just like, hey, what's your resume? I have none. Here's all my dance resume. Hire me for something. Like I can't hire you for even an administrative job, dude. But at that, like, I think what you're saying is so true though, because like I was fortunate enough to be able to kind of build it from the ground up for myself and to be able to work with so many different, whether it's companies or the choreographers when I was at a younger age, and kind of just throw myself because I had the support of my family. And then now getting to the point where, you know, I can feel very confident in being able to provide for my own family now. It's honest. That's the dream, man. Like I get to live my dream through my work and also be able to do the other stuff that is on the day-to-day basis without like too much stress as I used to have early on in the career where you're like, where am I getting my paycheck from?
Yeah.
But now I'm like, okay, I've built up enough of my own work that I hopefully it speaks for itself and people continue to respect it and come for that reason.
Okay. And now I kind of want to get into like a little bit of a mental exercise for everybody in the room, right? So I'm sure you've figured out like what it looks like from whatever point in your career to like current day, right? Now, do you think about your career in this profession out another 10, 15, right? Because I think that's like the hard part I think we don't do, I'm sure, in our like version of the generation, right? Is we don't think about, yo, can I do this thing 10 years out, right? Like, are you going to still be teaching classes, right? Like, are you going to, like, what does that look like in your community? Like, I'm sure, like, you're probably figuring it out live, right? But what does that kind of look like for even, like, us, right? Like, are you going to continue to do content? Are you going to do specific classes?
Right.
Like, what does that look like the next 5, 10 years, right? Like, have you thought about that for yourself? Because obviously now you have an established career, right? But you still, like any other career, you have to continuously build on it, right? To make it keep going.
Yeah. Anyone else want to go first?
I mean, for us, it's like one of those things that like, luckily I do have like a full-time job that I have as a backup, right? Like I consider that as like I have something that I can always rely on. But when it comes to like dancing, I mean, as long as this body can move, I will be teaching and dancing. But yeah, I mean, like to your point, like it is one of those things where like realistically you can't keep teaching forever. Like that's just not feasible, right? So I mean, yeah, like down the road, like the dream would be to, keep doing this and make it into like a whole studio type thing. But again, living in New York City makes that very difficult.
But we've seen that avenue, right?
We have seen that avenue. We've
definitely seen that avenue because how many like South Asian aunties do we know that own a dance studio, right? Like a lot of like people in our community, right? Like that's what we like looked at, right? But I'm excited for it, and I understand like that's usually like the current like iteration of that. I'm really excited for like what other iterations of that exist because of the community that y'all have built. Because y'all have built something that's so sustainable, what does the next iteration of that look like, right? Is it just like a studio in Jersey, right? Or is it like, I don't know, right? Or is it on the other side of that, on the very other side of it, is it choreographing Broadway?
I mean,
right? Like, is that the next jump,
yeah,
right?
I mean, I think, I say from my perspective, right, like teaching was one thing that it just fell into my lap in the midst of this career because like halfway through in college when I was working for a different dance company, they threw me into dance classes for kids and adults, right? And I was like, oh, so this is how I can make money and be financially sustain myself on a day-to-day basis while still like auditioning and doing all these other million things that don't often book you jobs, right? So I think I grew up in the theater world, essentially, right? How I fell in love with dance was through like learning or performing on stage. And so that's where I always like love being and creating, which is why like going back into rehearsals and shows and things like that, or whether it's for somebody else or having the chance to create for myself if it's a show, that is something I always want to keep going back into more frequently. And then, God willing, if one day we get a movie, cool, that'd be great too. Right. There's just so many other avenues to explore that I never like to say we can only go one way, right? It's just more like, if this happens now, then this is what we're going to focus on now. And then once that is done for now, we can always go back to this, right? Because you've done so many different things. And I think this is the best way in this field, to stay active, stay continuously learning, is to just leave yourself open to like all these different avenues. Because as she said, like it's dance, we're gonna get old, right? Like bodies, hopefully, knock on wood, we can still keep dancing for a long time. But like it's real. Like the energy that I had in my teens and 20s and now in my 30s, you see the difference right away. Like I feel the difference, right? Where it's management for your body is way different. So I think it's just keeping yourself open to being able to do different things and learning.
No, for sure. And like, and that's why like I always talk about how like as we develop as like a full-on culture, and I don't mean just a specific like sect, right? Like a dance, right? Or just singing, but eventually there's going to be entire operations that are going to need like South Asian dancers, South Asian singers, right? Like I think about like the B-Funk girls a lot, right? Like when Anik did a music video, like tapped them, right? And it's like, okay, like that's what like that eventually looks like. And that only gets bigger. I forgot who I was talking to, but they were like, eventually like whoever was like wants to do a movie where it's like, yo, it's going to take a American South Asian choreographer and a bunch of South Asian dancers to do this said movie, right? And I think like that's why like I wanted to have this conversation with y'all now is because I'm like, you guys have already developed the business part of it to a very sustainable level, right? Now it's like, again, ahead of a lot of people in that race. A lot of people still haven't figured that out, right? So the fact that the dance community has been able to do that is a big deal. So what is like the next iteration of that? Again, we don't know, right? Because y'all have been just doing the work to be, again, to stay relevant in that spot where it's like, okay, like when that opportunity or that path presents itself, like you guys can walk down it.
You know, I think that's also why a lot of dancers have kind of transitioned into the whole content creation game as well, because I think that also helps us get like our workout, our name out, and like social media obviously has a huge influence on, you know, the opportunities you get these days. So I think that transition is something that, you know, a lot of people have made and adapted to, and I think it could be like a definitely like one of those ways that, you know, you were saying that down the road, like, yeah, like content creation is, you know, great and everything, but getting paid for that is I think something that we're all trying to like figure out together right now.
I think the really cool thing is that, especially as someone who's like newer to teaching and stuff, at first I was mostly just like focused on like, okay, can I like break even on this class? Like next goal, like can I get to this many students? But now, I mean, next month will be 1 year for me.
Hey.
And I think especially seeing so many like South Asian people in like media like killing it, you have the ability to kind of dream bigger. So I think calling it a mental exercise as you did is correct, because I think it's very easy to get caught up in just like the logistics of it. But, you know, like you said, like there are so many avenues that we never even really thought of were open to us, and it's about being open to them.
No, I'm so glad you said that, right? Like the mental exercise of it, because it is about the thinking bigger, right? When eventually you get to a point of like, okay, I just want to break even. I just want to survive, right? Because that is the goal. I just want to do what I love, and I don't want to lose money on doing what I love, right? Like that is like the bare, like, please, right? And but you shouldn't, and that's why the mental exercise, right? It shouldn't stop there, right? It should be, how do I make this even bigger so I can not only just survive on doing what I love, but I can now provide for myself and the people that I love doing what I love, right? Because that is like realistically like the dream, right? And I think that, again, y'all are not that far away, right? Because when I see people like touring their dance classes, like that's insane.
Yeah, that's
Very insane.
Like that is insane.
Actually insane.
Yeah.
Not even kidding. That is insane.
Like y'all capture that? Man, it's just insane for me as like an outsider to be like, yo, that's crazy. Like imagine like how crazy I would feel if I could just be like, yo, I'm gonna go pod in different cities, right?
Yeah.
And y'all go come see me, right? But that's literally what
That's
this is.
it.
definitely never thought that would be possible in a million years.
Right, like real and it's, again, back to multiple people. Like I know multiple people that are doing tours through the U.S. right now as a dancer, teaching a class. Like how insane is that?
Right.
And that is, again, back to what you were kind of referring to. That is a big part of growing like the business on social media dash like whatever the public business is, right? Because it is. That's just how we do things. We don't like check like anybody's like resume, right? We check their LinkedIn, we check their IG. That is the resume, right? But it's insane because I'm like, yo, if y'all are touring and that's successful, then what else could we try?
Yeah.
That could exist in the space. Like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like could there be a different version, right? Where y'all selling classes?
Mm-hmm.
Like is that a possibility?
I mean, yeah, I think even nowadays, I think a lot of people are doing this as well. You know, there's so many avenues of you've taught one thing, right? And then people are creating tutorials, or people are like even like group touring together, like friends that are dancers. They're like, all right, 3-4 of us, we're just gonna hit up 3 cities together.
Yeah.
And in itself, that becomes like a little mini traveling convention. People are like, oh shit, 3 people are coming that we normally would never get to learn from. We're all gonna go for the weekend, right? So now it just becomes an entire weekend affair. And now all of a sudden a class is an event, becomes a convention, becomes a much bigger thing. Then all of a sudden we're getting into much bigger scales. And I think the bigger scales that we can get to, the better it is for our entire industry. Because what's really happening is we're trying to create an industry, which doesn't exist in reality here. There's like, yeah, South Asian stuff is blowing up on Netflix and all that kind of stuff. But I think like just the dance side of it all, not everybody knows who's doing what on that scale. And we're getting to that point. We're getting closer and closer, but it'll take more and more for us to continue to just keep pushing the envelope and doing more outside of just staying in our cities, going on tour, or like tapping other markets and seeing how we can explore those.
And that's, I'm so happy to hear that you think of it like that, right? Because that's really what it takes. When we talk about like the industry getting big, right? It's, of course, like we look at it as like I always look at it as like the full South Asian culture, right? But for that to exponentially grow, we need all the individual industries to be popping, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I always say it, like, I was like, yo, like when I do this, like, I don't want it to be like, oh, some like dancer that's relevant in New York, right? I want to, like, when I want to do it, I want to be like, yo, some dancers that are like, yo, when they tour, people show up, right? Because that's what you want, right? Like, that's how my industry grows, right?
Exactly.
And that's only as a result of how big that industry can be. So I'm really excited to hear about that. And I'm sure that y'all will figure it out, right? Like, because back to what Ansh was saying, right? First, it's just the break even. But then eventually you think, once you've been sustained 10 to 15 years in the game, then you can think about, okay, like what is the advancement of this now, right?
Yeah.
Nah, I look, again, like, and y'all are, this isn't just me saying it. A lot of people say that about the dance community in New York City, right? Like how sustainable it is, the fact that it can tour, because that is, you're moving like a real audiences. Because everybody like thinks that, oh, because you have a social media following, like that doesn't really mean anything. I always say, like, can you move like $1 your way?
Right.
And y'all are doing it like consistently. How often are you guys having classes? Once a month?
Like twice or 3 times a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twice and 3 times a month.
Yeah.
You're able to move a bunch of people.
When you think about it, because I think everyone on the outside who is not in the city, they're like, dude, how much are you teaching? It just seems like you're teaching like 5 classes a week. I'm like, 5 classes a week? No, you're like 3 classes a month? Huh?
Yeah.
4 if I'm like really feeling it,
Right.
because I'm like inspired. But like that's enough right now for me to like feel comfortable and feel sustained. And that is insane for me to be like, I can do that. Whereas when I used to teach at a dance school, I was teaching 12 classes a week, like Monday through Sunday. And then even when I had my own dance school, 10 classes a week, Monday through Sunday. And at that point, I was like, I am so tired. But now I can be more creative because we challenge each other and challenge ourselves to create more difficult, complicated, or just even just different things because we know the people that are coming to our classes and are willing and hungry to learn, which makes us hungrier to be better for them.
Yeah, 100%. No, I was also say that I think like keeping an open mind during this process is also so important because there's definitely like times where you're kind of questioning like why am I actually doing this? What's going to be the next step? And like as you were saying, like the mental exercise, like it can seem really daunting because there's really no like right or no wrong answer there, right? Like we're all really just kind of like, all right, this is working one day, this is not working the other day, like. But I think like at the end of the day, like keeping an open mind is like the most important thing because you have to be resilient. You have to be adaptable. Like things are changing literally on a weekly basis with this industry. So you never know like what opportunity will come by and like you got to be ready for it. Yeah.
But that right there, the not knowing is so important, right? Because that's how you actually know that you're pushing the needle, right? Like if you can just that's the part that I like always like shit on like amateurs, right? Because they just show up to something and they're all like, oh, I'm just gonna have a class, right? And then I'm not gonna challenge myself creatively. I'm just gonna have a class. I'm gonna get people, right? Like that's cool, right? But that's like you're not like pushing the needle, right? The pushing the needle part is like, how do I make this bigger? How do I make this innovative? How do I change up my choreography? Because that's how you make the individual products better, right? Because none of these things exist until the first person on the line goes, no, it's gonna be a thing, right? And then they're like, oh, this is like a thing, right?
Yeah.
When you're looking around, there's nobody doing consistent classes, right? So you're like, okay, but now you guys coming up, you see a lot of people having successful classes. So of course it's gonna bring people into it.
Right.
But the people who stay at the edge of that, like that ends up being important, right? Like I always like shit on like I have a beef with like other podcasters. I really don't. It's like the healthiest. Like they don't even know that I'm beefing with them. It's just all in here, right? But like it's like really not like a personal beef, right? It's because I want people to push the needle. Like I don't
Yeah.
want another person that just does this.
Mhm.
Like I want
Right,
somebody like if somebody else is on the edge, like pushing this, like in some way,
Mhm.
whether they're making a better product, whether they're doing better business. Like I only want it at the edge. Like otherwise, because it's beneficial for me
Yeah.
in
Right.
that
Yeah.
industry.
100%.
Like when you do something innovative or you're able to do a Broadway, then it's like, oh, that is now possible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
That is not possible,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay, like I can do Broadway,
Mhm.
right? And then hopefully then you need those people at the edge of it. And cool again to have a conversation with people like at very different stages of their career. Like it's important to remember that in all of those stages.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, for
In the
sure.
stage that you're at, in the stage
Yeah,
that you're at, in the stage
100%.
that you're at, even in the different avenues that you're at, right? Like where are you going to push the thing that you do?
No, even just speaking from my perspective, like coming in at a point where there were a lot of established teachers already, it was so nice to have people who kind of already knew what they were doing. Even just from like following like what they were doing to like before I first taught, I messaged Tush and asked her how to like book a Ripley space. Like I think like there's
Did the same thing with Rohit.
yeah. Like I mean, pushing the needle can be like with something super big, but it's also just it's so nice to have that like almost role model aspect of things to it.
Basic knowledge. It
Yeah.
just saves you
Right.
so much time on the way up.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right? It's just like because you figured out, then we're able to give it to who's able to give it to Arch, right? That saved you how much time
Mhm.
in your
Right.
in your journey, in your process.
Right.
Yeah.
It saved you a lot of time. So then if you are focused on pushing this to the edge, right? Like what is that time gonna then net you out? Hopefully people that take this further and further, right? Like I'm sure there's gonna be people that like started after you that you're like, holy shit, they're already doing that at such like a quick time. And it's only because of the things that you figured out and were able to pass on, right?
I mean, it's also just, and not just me, but there's also people before me that set up whatever that was, right? So it's a wonderful, beautiful circle of it all moment where you're like, yes, it started many, many years before even I did, but like I'm taking what they gave to me from like, and then I'm using that, hoping that it helps somebody else, and hoping that that also is now helping him, and then it's just also like it just keeps going down the line. Then all of a sudden you realize, you look down and you like look around, you're like, oh whoa, we've really
We pushed this.
we've made it.
Yeah.
We've really gotten to a point where you're like, we never thought we would, even just 10 years ago. And then next thing you know, we are doing Broadway shows, right? And then now we are doing movies. We're getting auditions for certain things that initially people didn't make because they didn't know we were around. But now there's just so many of us making so much good noise, not just noise, right? Like good quality noise, which is also important to show that we're for real and not just messing around.
No, for sure. And like that's how it should work in every industry, right? In every industry, you get the privilege of like seeing how far because of the work that people put in before you. Like I think about like how many DJs were just South Asian DJs. That was like a trope, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It was like, oh, like, but the South Asian wedding DJs,
Yeah.
right? That was just
Yeah.
like a trope.
Yeah.
That's what you did, right?
Mhm.
But I'm like, yo, because of those guys that made it like, yo, it could be sustainable. There was offsets of that, right? The
Yeah.
guys who started off as, oh, I'm going to be a wedding DJ, and then started DJing like their college dance mixes, right? And then built
right.
followings. It's like, yo, it's because they thought that, hey, I can even survive here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because once you've survived, right, then you're like, oh, I want more,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, for sure.
right? Like, oh, I can sell dance classes and make money, but okay, like now,
Now what's next?
Mhm.
Yeah.
what is next?
I think also like creating our own opportunities is also really important because I mean, like I was mentioning earlier, like there, like yeah, you can wait around for things to come to you, but I think for us specifically as dancers, because we don't get like those same kind of opportunities that maybe other artists usually do, like singers or DJs or whatnot. I think it's also like kind of time to that we build our own path and kind of just like make our own moves and opportunities. Like, you know, we're trying to put together a dance showcase this summer and you know incorporate like all the dancers here in the community and just kind of like just be like, hey, like we do exist and we have a community here. Like it's not just people who like come for fun and dance and then like leave. Like it's really like taken a lot of time and a lot of investment from not even like us but like the people who come into our dance classes to really build what like the human connection, right? The community that we have. So I think that's also just important to like kind of highlight and make sure that it's not just us. It is also like the people who attend and because of them this is even possible.
Nah, and that's like, yo, honestly, that is like the most gangster shit, right? Because no, because y'all didn't go and ask somebody like, yo, go like do this for me, right? Like on a very tangible level, like, yo, you built out a real revenue stream for a lot of y'all.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like you by yourselves, right? It's like nobody like gave like it's like, oh, like you didn't ask anybody like, oh, give me money for this. No. You built a community, you built an audience, and then you were able to monetize on that audience and create a true create enough value where they even felt like, yo, I'm gonna do this every week.
Right.
Right? Because it's not just again, I'm sure you don't look at it that it's not just a dance class.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
If I really wanted just a dance, if I just wanted to learn how to dance, bro, I could just go on YouTube and be like, yo, teach me this choreography, right?
Yeah.
But it truly is
It's an experience. Like we've created an experience at this point, right? Like it's not just a dance class. You're not just like learning 2 steps and leaving the room. We tried our best to like, create an experience. It is, I mean, at the end of the day, it has become an event, and like dance is a very mental thing. Like it's a very vulnerable and mental thing. And I think for people to come get that experience from us and leave feeling some sort of like, wow, I feel better about myself than I did when I walked in. I think that's something that's really created a lot of value for our dance class.
Yo, I'm so glad you said that. I hear that and see that so often. I know people aren't just saying that either, right? When they say like, yo, like I didn't have the confidence, because I know y'all be doing like videos at like the classes too, right? Where people say like, yo, I would never have the confidence to even like post something like this, right? Or like do this, but because like I was able to do this class, learn it, feel confident in that, like that is such an invaluable thing, right? That I'm sure you like really grab around to make people feel like, yo, I'm here and I can do even this.
Yeah.
Right?
No, definitely.
Because I do think I don't want to speak for everyone, but I do think we come from a culture where people can be very hard on themselves. And I think a lot of times that does manifest in dance classes, because I think there's a really nice sense of community there. But a lot of times, you can be hard on yourself. You're like, oh, I'm not picking up this one step correctly, or I don't look exactly like the choreographer. And I think as the instructor, it's your job to kind of just make it about your own personal journey and your improvement. And I think that's why I love going to some of the other like South Asian choreographers classes as well, because I think like, yes, you get the video at the end and sometimes you mess up and forget everything and sometimes it's great, but like it's really just about like how not to be cheesy, but it's really about how much fun you had during the class more than anything.
No, how much fun you have and how you feel like leaving it, right?
Yeah.
Like I've only ever been to one New York City dance class. Shout out to Rad, because like, I'm sorry guys, I'm not going to I'm not that dancer, right? Like I can't dance, but the thing I felt like crazy just experiencing, right? Like was like, oh, like the level of like mental connection that like the instructor tries to make with everybody in, right? To make everybody feel like, hey, seen, make everybody feel like, yo, like this is like, you got this, right? Because I think that, again, back to creating a real experience, like that is a big part of it, right? The feeling of like, yo, I'm going to leave this feeling good, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like that in itself is such an invaluable thing. How many things do we leave, right? Where we're just like, oh, like I didn't want to, you know what I'm saying? But this is something that people are escaping to. And for them to feel like, hey, like my soul was rejuvenated, or I feel better about myself. Yo,
especially in a city like New York City, where
well,
sometimes.
tough city to live in.
Yo, what you're describing though, like I don't like understated though, that might be a big reason why it's able to exist so heavily, right? Because of the need for community, having like a hobby that you could share with a group of people and see each other. Because I know like I'm sure a lot of your attendees are probably people that overlap amongst a lot of them.
Sure.
Right? Like back to like the community piece, right? So for them, on the consumer side, it's like, okay, like I get to see my friends. It's an activity outside of just like going out. It's something I could do for the week. Like there's so much value there, right? Which is, again, back to why it's been so successful, right?
I mean, it's always just like there's, in New York, such a big city, so many people, it can feel lonely if you've just moved here as well. And I think it's very important to always just keep in mind, at least this is the mind frame I try to go in with, it's like there's going to be that one person in class that just might not be having the best day of their life. Just one. And if all it takes is for you to have one moment where you're not at your best or giving them your absolute best, right? Even if it's just that's just energy. Doesn't even necessarily mean what you've created, because there's ups and downs when we create stuff, right? Good days, bad days. You love stuff that you've made, you hate stuff that you've made. You look back 90% of the time, when I look back, I'm like, oh God, why'd I do that? Right? But I think the important part and what I strive for when I hear this and I think they also hear it in their classes, is that if that one person even just comes up to you and is like, I needed this, I didn't even know any of the steps properly for today, but I just needed that for those 2 hours. I was like, great, my job's done, right? I gave you something that you needed, and you come back maybe the next time, but even if you come back a year from now, I'm just happy that like my intentions were right. I gave you all of myself, and we created a safe enough space for you to come and just dance, right? And get rid of all the BS outside.
Yeah. No, and I think that that level of like sincerity and creativity is probably what really resonates with people in anything, right?
Yeah.
But it's like the fact that like they feel like, hey, like you were able to make me like feel something, right? That's all we're like really trying to do, like social media creation, right? It's like you're just making somebody feel something for an amount of time, right? For the duration of your class, like that is what it is, right? It's like making them try to feel something. And usually, like, it ends up being successful, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't show up again, right?
Yeah.
But I think that is, like, so cool. And, like, I think, like, when even, like, hearing people say, like, yo, like, I'm sure y'all have heard it, right? Like, yo, I needed this today,
Yeah.
right? Like, I needed to...
Sometimes we even need it today.
Yeah. We need it too, right? Like, not wrong.
Yo, no, not wrong, right? Like, that's the part, like, not to be, like, overlooked, right? Sometimes we need it. Sometimes, like, yo, shit sucks, and then, like, I come up here, right? Like, I'm sure sometimes shit sucks, and y'all are surrounded by your community.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you go, right? Like, that's where you go when things are bad. Like, you go back to your community.
Exactly.
Like, you want to feel like, hey, like, I'm, like, not here just by myself. Like, life sucks, right?
Yeah.
Like,
No, and then I think you kind of just said it, where it's like, creating for social media is fun and all. It's cool. It can be very lonely sometimes because you're doing it by yourself a lot, unless you're doing it sometimes with friends, but that doesn't always happen. But that can be a lonely thing. But the palpable energy that you feel being in a room or like a theater or any of that kind of space, when you actually feel people's energy, whether it's like really hype or like or when they're nervous, you can feel that energy too. But it's just it's something about that. It's like, okay, I need to come back. I need to come back and keep doing this and keep making this better and better and better for myself and for them more specifically. And I think you can't ever get that just by only posting on social media. That kind of makes sense.
Especially because it's so easy to just hide behind social media these days. Like,
Yeah.
you can be scrolling for hours and like, see like all these people posting content and like, but having like not having that human connection at the end of the day, I think is what makes it or breaks it for some people, because you can easily like just get lost in this whole process of like, man, like I really want to go, but like it looks so hard and like all of that. But at the end of the day, once you just get yourself there, I think I always tell this to people who come to classes too, or too afraid to like get in front of the camera. Like, as long as you like make it through the door and somehow get through those 2 hours, I think that in itself is like a huge step for anyone who like comes to these dance workshops too.
And like for me, when I first started teaching, I remember I was like, I need to like build my like Instagram followers and everything. So during classes, I was so focused on like what the final video would look like. And then when you're in that mindset, I just kept messing up in all the videos. I kept forgetting the choreo. And then I was like, girl, like get it together. like this is not like, you're here to grow. You're here to like have fun. And if you do that, you probably will get a good video. But if you don't, that's also okay. And I think social media, it's a really great tool because it allows you to really reach people who you might not have ever been able to reach pre-social media, like being able to tour and do things like that. But it also, it also can be toxic, and you can a video that you might feel very, very proud of could only get like a small number of likes, and it can be easy to take that to heart. And so it's really important to kind of just think of it as like a tool and disconnect that from like your own talent and like growth as a dancer.
I mean, on that video front, I think I'll say it, but I think it's important that it doesn't matter. The video, who cares, right? Because like the video is for your growth. That's all it is, for ourselves as well, right? I'm sure there's enough videos that you guys have made in class. I've made enough videos at the end of class. I'm like, I don't want to do this video because I don't feel confident in my own choreography, right? I need 5 or 6 reps of this because it's just the way I'm trained. I need more. And now I'm imagining people in class like, I don't want to get in front of a camera because like this is terrifying. I barely just learned the dance. So I think it's ultimately important that it's not that important. Like, important to say that it's not that important. And like, social media is amazing. it allows us to do so many things for our dance stuff, but it's also not the end all be all because you can always make a much better video the next day.
Yo, and you guys should always ground yourself in a very tangible thing, which is that you, again, have a real physical impact. Right? Like fuck the numbers. Like honestly, like who gives a fuck if your number hit a K or 5K or 10K, right? You got 50 real human beings on a Wednesday night in New York City to show up to something and make them feel something, right? Like that to me, like that is always like the thing that like I reground myself in that, right? Because I like always like think I'm all like, yo, I have the most quality product, right? I have to believe that, right? Yeah. But I'm all like the numbers maybe don't justify that, right? But anytime I go out in New York and hearing tangible people be like, yo, I saw you on my For You, or yo, I saw you, I'm all like, oh, no. I'm having real, it's important to remind yourself that those 1,000 people is a lot of fucking people. Like a lot of fucking people. Imagine 1,000 people came up to you today and said, yo, I love your shirt. You would never take that shirt off, right? 1,000 people, right? Like I have to remind myself, like, yo, these like number expectations are the most insane thing because
it's unreal.
100%.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
The fact that you can
sustainable.
The fact that you can convince 50 tangible human beings to come spend an hour of their lives, right? Like you reground yourself in that always. Like fuck the video, right? Like,
I mean, like think about it, right? Like, what happens if like social media goes away tomorrow? That's okay, right? We're still interacting with people every day that are coming to learn with us and just to dance with us, and that goes so much further, man. Like, and also like 1,000 people. Imagine 1,000 people coming to just watch you do anything in life, right? Like dance. 1,000 people is insane, insane. 50,000 people is insane to come watch you do a show. That's like a football stadium concert right there, right? That's like Taylor Swift level.
No, but like, you know what's crazy? Like the impact is like it's like absurd to me because when you think about like the real amount of people, the Jacarias just did the Mohan matchmaking and they did like a dance thing, right? And it was like 600 something people or something, and I'm all like, that's fucking insane. Like 600 people learned your dance in the middle of a ballroom in New York. Like what? Like, but again, like we're so like desensitized to like.
I was just gonna say
desensitized to numbers, right? Because we're like 1 billion people. Like it's like like I'm like, you know, anytime I see like anything with the M next to it, I'm like, damn, you reached 1 million people.
Seriously.
Like, but the fact that you could get a physical like 50. That is a hard testament, right?
Exactly.
Because the other stuff is just, again, like, what if social media goes away, right? Like, it is, like, really based off of, like, the businesses that these algorithms are, right? But the fact that you can have a real impact to real people, like, that is, like, the ultimate value.
It's so much more meaningful, too. Like, like, the numbers at the end of the day will only, like, get you so far. But having that, like, meaningful in-person experience, like, there's honestly, like, no value can you put on that. Like,
And this is why, like, I wanted to have this conversation and apply it to, like, just creatorship as a whole, right? Because that's what like really ticks me off, right? Where it's like you don't really have a tangible value that you're providing. Like, you're just creating in the process of like, I'm just gonna make a video, right? Like, I'm just gonna make y'all see something, right? But there's no tangible, like, because what you said is like, hey, this should be for your growth. There's a purpose underlying, right? But a lot of people, I feel like, again, not in dance, just like in creatorship as a whole, just create to like create.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right. And it's like because you haven't really understood that, like, hey, like what you're doing needs to have some purpose.
Yeah.
Is it just to be like?
Yeah, I mean, I think you fall into that trap of social. Like most people fall into the trap of social media. If you're just like, well, this is trending, so I think I should do it, right? Like, and that is a very vicious cycle to fall into because like what if you just really hate this song or this piece of music and you're like, but I gotta do it to stay relevant. And like it doesn't make any sense. How many
dancers do you think we lost to fucking like just doing viral TikTok dances?
Oh yeah.
Huh? How many dancers have we lost to that? Be honest, right? Like I was just really into like hip hop dance growing up, right? So I was following choreographers like Brian Puspos, Ian Westwood, right? Like guys who are really fucking dancing, right? And I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, but they're not making like viral TikTok dances, but
real dances.
They're making real dances. But you know who I know? Like, yo, shout out, what's his name? Jersey Mike, the one that has, what's his name? the guy that does the scar clip, bro. Jersey Mike. That's the choreographer that I see on TikTok.
I don't even know.
I don't think I know.
Bro,
Jersey Mike, I know. Is
have you
like
seen
the
that
sub
song?
shop.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
that's what I was
Like
thinking.
the sub shop.
Yeah.
Like
Jersey
food.
Jersey Joe, right?
Jersey
He does like a
Joe,
random
okay.
Jersey Club TikTok dance.
I have to
right?
look this up when I get
But
home.
everyone, I'll show you this after. Everyone knows his choreography. But I'm like, that's not a real choreographer. But the real choreographers aren't making like, hey, I'm going to just do a bunch of viral TikTok dances, right? They're choreographing for real, right? Like there's levels to it.
Exactly. I think like one thing as dancers, I mean, I don't know if you guys agree with this, is also like you kind of have to work smartly now too. Like, yeah, like you can create your own stuff and like, push out like work really, really hard for hours to create content and like make your own choreography. But I think with this whole like new generation of like TikTok dances and viral dances and, trying to stay relevant, you kind of have to like kind of play the game a little bit too and kind of adapt. All right, like I'll post like my own choreo, but also like let me just like do a couple of viral dances to like keep myself relevant on social media, which sounds kind of like really fucked up, but
No. But again, at least you know that that's your purpose, right? You're staying relevant so you can then feed them with that, right? Like I always talk about like, even for something like this, right? Like you have to give them the shit that enjoys and gets clicks, and you have to mix in the game like in between, right?
Yeah.
I would love to have, what I would really want to do is I want to sit here and just break down the entire business of dance, right? But it has to be entertaining and engaging, right? But I have to feed them a little bit of game, right? Same thing. You know what your purpose is, right? You know that I'm going to provide them with my real original choreography, right? I'm going to get them into dance classes, but I got to play whatever the algorithm is also doing. It is a part of playing that game, right? Like even in like, I'm sure like within like dance classes, right? Having a video element is probably now just like a necessary standard, right? Some people, some people probably don't even care to have it, right? It's just a necessary, they don't, right?
I personal opinion, right? I don't think so because now I'm just seeing it more and more. I'm like, I'll send you'll spend money on videographer and all. It's all great, but like most of the time, by the time I even get home, there's like 10 videos from that class from people's phone, and I'm like, why did I just spend that much money to then send you that video? Which you're probably not going to post, right?
But again, playing the game,
but
right?
you got to play the game.
It's just the standard.
Right? Like,
it's just the
there's
standard.
just certain things you just have to do now.
Right?
So it's all tricky, but like you play to the best that you can without selling your soul too much.
No, like when you even think about like just like podcasting, right? Like you're just like podcasting should just be like an audio thing, right?
Yeah.
But the game is that like, yo, your favorite podcast probably has a fucking video, right? Like I'm sorry, like if you're just like one of these podcasts now trying to make it, like you just need a video, right? Like that's just like the reality of it. Like what it originally started off as, yeah, sure, right? People, yes, listen to podcasts, but you just need the video element, right? It is such a fine line, but I'm glad that people are staying true to the authenticity of like what they're trying to produce, right? Like the conversation that we were having like earlier, right? That everyone has these niches that are that authentic to their style, right? Like they're not like, of course you guys are challenging yourselves as dancers, but hey, like within this thing that is so authentic to me, right? Like my dance style is so authentic to like mine. Because I'm sure like you guys ever notice it in each other that y'all have like individual like styles? Like are you able to look at one of each other's choreography and be like, oh, like that could be
for sure.
For sure.
You know what's cool when you see other people doing other people's choreography, like it's not like the actual choreographer doing the dance, and then you can spot like just without just looking at it, you're like, yep, this is the shit. And you're like, oh shit. And no music's on either, right? You're like, okay, yeah.
You can just tell by like the
and that's when you know it's like, all right, we're figuring something out here where it's like we've all found our niche, but we're also like crafting and perfecting that niche that we can all recognize each other's stuff now.
No, but that's important.
Which is very important.
That's very important. Having a signature style.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because I know, like, I'm sure you've noticed, like, there's probably people in your audience that are here because they enjoy your style of choreography, right? Back to like everyone has one, right? Like having these individual niches, but like it needs to be signature to you, right?
Exactly.
Like if I'm just going for like an off-brand version of somebody else's, like, what is the point, right? Like there's too many options. There's too many options, right? Like you need a signature style in New York, right? Because if you don't, like I'm just gonna go to one of 5, 10 other people, right?
Exactly.
Yo, fun little content idea. Y'all should 1,000% do like a video. Yo, write this down. Well, I'll produce this. You guys should do a thing where y'all watch different dances, like people's choreographies, and try to guess the choreographer.
That
I would
actually
love-
would be-
Oh, that'd
I would-
be cool.
kinda
I would
fun.
love to see that.
One idea I had, the Steezy does these things where it's like 4 choreographers
I
choreo
wanted
to the
to do
same
that for
song.
so
Yeah.
long.
I wanted to do that. I feel
I've
like that would be
seen
so
that.
fun.
I also have another idea. Write it down. We're gonna make it happen at some point. Just in my brain is to just write down one dance move on a piece of paper, and like you meet up with
Try
a
to
bunch of
act it
friends. Then you pull it out and you make up that dance move, and you make up a dance.
Yo,
Off
I
of, like,
Wait,
five
I
pieces of
love
paper.
this.
Do it.
Yo, let's go.
Let's
Bro,
do it.
all right. Like, yo, these are the ideas I'm talking about. Just like iterate. Like, yo, say what you talk game, right? Like anything that y'all can add to each other. Because I would love to see more creative stuff like that. Like that's the thing. So fire. If we need to have the South Asian model of that,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
right? Like, but people have to go create those, right? Like,
Exactly.
like
Gotta
that's
make it. Yeah.
yeah, that and this is I'm gonna give y'all like the little like spiel that I have with everyone up here, right? That's why I really just have these conversations about driving things forward, right? Because I see all of these things, I'm like, it would be so fly if that existed, right? In the South Asian space, but somebody got to create it.
Yeah.
That's why like I have these conversations with everybody come up because I'm like, it might be one of y'all, right?
Yeah.
Like I hope so, right? Like I hope
Right.
somebody comes out and drives something. It doesn't have to be that specific project, but something. What you're talking about, I hope you drive it, right? 'Cause I want to see those things. I want to see them done well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? I think we're wrapping up, but so we end every podcast with a segment called Call Your Shot, presented by Jungly, where we basically ask everyone up here, right? Like something that they, my version of manifesting, something that they want to do next 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever timeline, something that you feel comfortable sharing. The reason I have is goal setting, right? I want y'all to be able to say this. I want to be able to like see y'all do it, hit y'all when it happens, and be like, yo, like, yeah, I made it happen. So with that, yo, call your shot
Oh, God.
in any order.
I can start. So I think within the next year, one of my dance goals this coming year is to teach in a city outside of New York. So
Let's go.
I would like to do that
Yeah.
at some point. So
Sure.
calling my shot.
I'm with it. I'm with it.
I mean, my dream goal is, depending on, I don't know if it's gonna happen this year or next year or ever, but choreographic some music video for Diljit Dosanjh. That is fingers
I
crossed.
like that.
Gonna
I
happen
like
one
that.
day.
I like that. I like that. I like that.
Let's go. I have way too many, so I'm gonna try to keep it to 3. As much
Okay.
there's always floating in the head. 1, develop a touring show of my own. Worked on several others of other people's, but to do my own, it's just a checklist that I need to cross off at some point in life. Where I'll find the money to do that, I don't know. But if you know any producers, hit me up. Yeah. And eventually, I'm gonna speak this into existence. I one day want to get into acting.
Hey.
Hey.
Get older, body's giving out stuff. But I want to get into
Catch
acting.
that window.
Just stay in. I will still keep dancing no matter what. But like eventually at some point.
No, yo, I love that. Yo, guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for coming. It was
Thank
most of our
Thank
first
you.
times meeting,
Thanks for
but
having me.
appreciate y'all coming up. Yo, thank y'all for listening. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Music, some
You
sort of
had a
like
dance
break off.
class.
5, 6, 7, 8.